you've ever felt like you don't quite fit in anymore, if conversations that used to excite you now feel empty, if you find yourself preferring solitude over socializing, you're not broken, you're awake. And awakening comes with a price most people don't talk about: loneliness. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone, but the deeper kind, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who no longer speak your language. Today, I want to share something the Master of Light once taught about this, about why spiritual awakening often means walking a path that gets narrower, not wider, and why that's not only normal, it's necessary. Let me tell you about a woman named Elena. Elena was the life of every party, the friend everyone called, the one who organised gatherings, remembered birthdays, kept the group chat alive. She had dozens of friends, or so she thought. Her weekends were packed. Brunches, happy hours, shopping trips, dinner parties. Her calendar looked like success. Her social life looked enviable. But then something shifted. It started small. A book someone recommended about consciousness, then meditation, then questioning things she'd always accepted without thinking. Her perspectives began to change. Her priorities realigned. The things that once excited her started feeling hollow. She'd sit at dinner parties listening to conversations about gossip, material possessions and surface-level drama, and feel like she was watching a play she was no longer part of. When friends complained about their problems, she'd offer deeper perspectives, about patterns, about personal responsibility, about growth. They'd look at her strangely and change the subject. "You've changed," they started saying, and not as a compliment. She tried to fit in, to laugh at the same jokes, to care about the same things, but it felt like wearing clothes that no longer fit. Uncomfortable, constricting, false. Invitations became less frequent. Group chats went quiet when she'd contribute something meaningful. Friends stopped calling as much. At first, she panicked. She thought something was wrong with her. She tried harder to reconnect, to be the old Elena, the fun one, the easy one. But the truth was undeniable. She had outgrown these relationships, not because she was better than anyone, but because she had changed frequencies. One night, sitting alone in her apartment, another Friday evening with no plans, she broke down crying. Not because she was alone, but because she finally understood what was happening. She was grieving the friendships that could no longer sustain her, grieving the version of herself who fit in so easily, grieving the comfortable illusion that she could grow spiritually without losing anyone. That's when she remembered something the Master of Light had written in one of his books, something she'd read months ago but hadn't fully understood until that moment. The Master of Light once said, "When you begin to awaken, you will lose many friends, not because you have become arrogant or different, but because you have become real, and reality is too bright for those still comfortable in the dark." Elena sat with those words, let them penetrate the sadness she'd been carrying. The Master explained that spiritual awakening is like climbing a mountain. At the base, there are thousands of people. The path is wide, there's laughter, companionship, shared experiences. But as you climb higher, the path narrows, the air gets thinner, fewer people continue. Not because they're lazy or wrong, but because most people are content at whatever level they've reached. And that's okay. The Master of Light spoke of 3 types of people you encounter on the spiritual path. The comfortable, those who have found a level of the mountain that satisfies them. They've built homes there. They're happy. They don't understand why you keep climbing, and they'll often try to convince you to stop. "Why are you making life so complicated?" they'll say. "Just be happy with what you have." The curious, those who are interested in the journey but not committed, they'll climb with you for a while, ask questions, and admire the view. But when the path gets steep, when the climb requires real sacrifice, they turn back. They wanted the transformation without difficulty. The committed, those rare souls who climb regardless of cost, who understands that awakening isn't a destination but a continuous journey. These are your true companions, but they are few. The Master said something else that pierced Elena's heart. The most painful part of awakening is not the solitude. It's watching people you love choose to stay asleep. It's realizing you cannot wake someone who is pretending to sleep. It's accepting that your growth might mean growing apart. Elena understood then. Her friends hadn't rejected her. They simply couldn't follow where she was going, and she couldn't stay where they were, not out of superiority, but out of necessity. Because once you've tasted truth, once you've experienced deeper consciousness, once you've seen beyond the illusions, You can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending. You can't make small talk feel fulfilling. You can't invest energy in surface-level connections that leave you feeling depleted. But here's what the Master of Light warned about: the spiritual ego trap. Some people, when they lose friends during awakening, develop a sense of superiority. They start believing they're more evolved, or on a higher level. They look down on others still asleep. This, the Master said, is not awakening at all. It's the ego wearing spiritual clothes. True awakening brings humility, not arrogance. Compassion, not judgment. Understanding, not condemnation. You don't lose friends because you're better. You lose friends because you're different. And different doesn't mean better. It just means you're walking a different path. The Master of Light taught, when you truly awaken, you don't look down on those still sleeping. You remember how comfortable that sleep was. You honor their journey. You simply cannot join them in it anymore. Elena began to understand her loneliness differently after studying the Master's teachings. She realized that spiritually awake people struggle with friendships for very specific reasons. Different conversations. When you're on a path of consciousness, your conversations change. You want to talk about purpose, meaning, growth, truth. You're interested in ideas, in deep questions, in authentic sharing. But most people want to talk about other people, about surface events, about distractions and entertainment, and filling the void rather than exploring it. This doesn't make them wrong, but it makes connection difficult. Elena found herself in conversations thinking, we're speaking the same language but saying completely different things. Words that once connected now highlighted the distance between her inner world and theirs. Different values. Awakening shifts your value system fundamentally. What society celebrates, wealth, status, possessions, image, starts feeling empty. What society dismisses, solitude, simplicity, inner peace, authenticity, becomes precious. You find yourself unable to participate in competitive conversations about achievements, unable to envy someone's new car or promotion, unable to engage in gossip or judgment, not because you're trying to be difficult, but because those things genuinely don't resonate anymore. Elena's friends thought she'd become boring. She thought they'd become superficial. Neither was wrong. They'd just grown in different directions, different energy. The Master of Light spoke often about energy, about how awakening makes you sensitive to energetic exchanges in ways you weren't before. You start noticing who drains you and who nourishes you, which conversations leave you feeling heavy and which leave you feeling light, which relationships are reciprocal and which are parasitic. You realize you've been spending time with people out of obligation, habit, or fear of being alone, not because the connection is genuine, and once you see this, you can't unsee it. Elena started declining invitations, not to be difficult, but because she could feel, physically feel, when an interaction would deplete her, when a gathering would require her to shrink herself to fit in. Her friends interpreted this as rejection, but it was actually self-preservation. Different pace. Awakening changes your relationship with time. You become more present, more intentional, less willing to waste precious moments on meaningless interactions. You'd rather have one deep conversation than 10 shallow ones. Rather spend an evening alone reading, meditating, or creating than at a party where you have to wear a mask. This makes you seem antisocial, difficult, changed, and you are changed irrevocably. The Master of Light says, the awakened soul walks slower than the sleeping crowd, not because they're lazy, but because they see more, and seeing more requires pausing, reflecting, integrating. Elena stopped apologizing for her slower pace, stopped forcing herself to keep up with a rhythm that no longer served her growth. But here's what Elena discovered, what the Master of Light promised and what she initially didn't believe. When you lose inauthentic connections, you make space for real ones. The friendships she lost were based on convenience, proximity, and shared surface interests. They couldn't survive her transformation because they were never built to. But as she embraced her path, as she stopped pretending, as she showed up authentically, something miraculous happened. New people appeared, not many, but the right ones. A woman at a meditation class who understood without explanation. A man at a bookstore who recommended the exact book she needed. An online community where depth was the norm, not the exception. These connections were different, effortless, nourishing, real. The Master of Light called this soul recognition. When two people on similar paths meet, there's an instant knowing, a resonance, a feeling of, finally, someone who speaks my language. These friendships look different than conventional ones. You don't need constant contact. You can go weeks or months without speaking and pick up exactly where you left off. The connection isn't dependent on frequency, but on depth. You don't need shared activities. The friendship isn't built on doing things together, but on being real together. You can sit in silence and feel perfectly connected. You don't need validation. You don't perform for each other. You don't need to be impressive or entertaining or on. You can be messy, confused, struggling, and feel completely accepted. You challenge each other. Real soul friends don't just comfort you, they reflect your blind spots. They call you on your patterns. They love you enough to tell you the truth. Elena's new friendships numbered far fewer than her old ones, but they fed her soul in ways hundreds of surface connections never could. Quality over quantity became not just a saying, but a lived reality. The Master of Light taught something crucial. The spiritually awakened person doesn't need many friends. They need true friends. And true friends are rare, precious, and worth the loneliness that precedes them. He also said, if you have even one person in your life who truly sees you, who understands your journey, who supports your growth without needing you to explain, you're wealthy beyond measure. Elena realized she'd spent years collecting people. Now she was cultivating connection, and the difference was everything. If you're experiencing this, if you're feeling the loneliness of awakening, here's what the Master of Light would want you to know. Your loneliness is temporary. You're in the transitional phase. You've left one world but haven't fully entered the next. This in-between space is uncomfortable, but it's not permanent. Your standards aren't too high. They're just different. Don't lower them to avoid loneliness. Trust that the right people will meet you at your level. Your solitude is sacred. Use this time to deepen your relationship with yourself. The most important friendship you'll ever have is with your own soul. Your journey is necessary. You're not losing friends as punishment. You're shedding connections that no longer serve your evolution. This is growth, not loss. Your tribe is coming. The people meant for this version of you will find you. When you're vibrating at your true frequency, you attract those on the same wavelength. One of my favorite teachers once said, "The path of awakening is not for everyone. It requires courage to stand alone when the crowd goes another way. It requires strength to honor your truth when others want you to compromise. It requires faith to believe that in losing the many, you will find the few who truly matter." Elena stopped counting friends, stopped comparing her social life to others, stopped apologizing for her depth, her sensitivity, her standards. She embraced the path, knowing that everyone walking it experiences this narrowing, this refinement, this sacred solitude that precedes profound connection, and in that embrace she found peace. If you're watching this and recognizing yourself in Elena's story, know this: you're not alone in your aloneness. All over the world, people are awakening, feeling the same loneliness, walking the same narrow path, wondering if they're the only one who can't go back to shallow connections and meaningless conversations. You're not. We're a scattered tribe, often invisible to each other, but we exist. And when we find each other, when we finally meet someone who sees us, understands us, resonates with us, it makes every moment of loneliness worth it. The Master of Light's final teaching on this: better to walk alone in truth than together in illusion. Better to have one real friend than 100 false ones. Better to honor your path than compromise your soul for company. Your spiritual awakening will cost you many friends, but it will also give you something far more valuable: yourself. And in finding yourself, you'll find those who are meant to walk beside you all along. On this mountain of awakening, the path will always be narrow. But look closely. You are not the only one climbing. Far away, on other parts of the trail, there are lights moving too. Those are your people. You will meet them when the time is right. Tonight, take a moment to sit in silence and ask yourself, which relationships nourish my soul and which only fill my time? You don't need to cut anyone out today. Just be honest. Awareness is the first act of courage.